Monster Rancher and all of its incarnations can be a terrifyingly complex game, and some of the requirements necessary to unlock monster breeds or find specific items can also be equally imposing, especially to newcomers. I documented several of these in my Let's Plays of the series thus far, Evo coming soon, I promise, and some of them I am genuinely surprised people found in the pre-data mining era. Mad props to Monster Fenric and LegendCup.com for the always up-to-the-minute guides, and the Monster Rancher Discord server for throwing out ideas that help to fill out this list. You guys have been huge in answering my questions, and a good reminder that not all fandoms are huge, sweeping tire fires. Anyway, today, we're going to look at 10 pieces of advice one could, past and present, find in relation to the Monster Rancher series of games, and debunking them here for your amusement. Let's take a closer look. And if you'd be so kind, be sure to mash those like and subscribe bell icons if you haven't already. Let's get into things. Greetings everyone, this is the Hipster Snek, and yes, I'm doing another Monster Rancher video outside of May because I am very, very good at timekeeping. Anyway, as promised, we're going to break open a new top 10, the top 10 myths of Monster Rancher. Keep it punchy, but really, we're going to look at fake guides, rumors, and all sorts of weird falsities associated with the franchise. And believe me, there was a time when, as a fan, you couldn't go 5 sentences on the internet without running into something like the items on this list below. So without further delay, let's dive in. Number 10. Monster Rancher DS can use GBA cards to unlock monsters? Hard no. This one wasn't a terribly prolific rumor, hence its number 10 placement. But it was, at first, speculated and later on rumored that the DS's inclusion of a Game Boy Advance slot meant that Tecmo might have added a new use for that slot by means of creating monsters using it. However, no. The GBA port was never hot swappable anyway, so mechanically, I think this means that this just wouldn't have worked as a mechanic. Also, it was proven at great length that no such functionality is found within the game, just the sketch, speech, and magic password inputs. Don't get me wrong, the functionality would have been super neat to see implemented. However, it's just not. Also remember that Monster Rancher DS's monster generation was buggier than an anthill, and let's not add any more fuel that could catch it on fire, yes? Alright, moving on. Number 9. Monster Rancher 3's Kalaragi event can softlock your progress. Half true, actually, but the circumstances under this are a little specific. The first issue with this bug is that you'd have to willingly play Monster Rancher 3, so that's just a terrible start. Second, the bug only occurs in the V10 prints of the game, as shown here on LegendCup.com. Told you they were the functional Bible of Monster Rancher players. Losing to Gatomon on a particular event would softlock your story progress, as you would never be able to find the item that she demands from you in return. In the V1.1 prints of Monster Rancher 3, this is corrected and the item can be found properly. However, if you beat her, the bug doesn't happen anyway. And seriously, who loses to Gatomon of all people? Anyway, this one is kind of true, and there is an easy way to check which printing you have on hand just by glancing at the disc's label. How handy. Number 8. Monster Rancher 2's Beacon can only be unlocked with a completely stress-free life. I'll be the first to admit that some of the PS1-era Monster Rancher unlock conditions are, well, there's no other word for it really, they're quite dumb. Monster Rancher 1's Ghost and MR2's Zilla and Jill spring to mind. So misunderstandings were almost certainly going to spring up along the way. Inexplicably, people began spreading the rumor that in order to get the Beacon, the worm that you train must go its entire life without ever experiencing a single point of stress. Training once raises the stress meter here, people. This is demonstrably false, as accepting Monster Rancher 1's weird life reset quirk, your worm's going to be kinda old when this event finally happens. Are you supposed to just entertain a worm resting each and every week for over 4 in-game years? No! Just stuff its gullet full of cup jellies and make sure it's 100% when it's time to cocoon. It's what save scumming is for if you manage to blow it anyway. To quote LegendCup.com, the worm must have 0 fatigue and 7 or less stress on June week 4. It does not matter what the worm had during its life up to the cocooning event. Oh yeah, and for a fun bit of trivia to add to this one, the reason you feed them the cup jellies is due to the Japanese hobby of beetle keeping, where cups of jelly very similar to the one seen in-game are used as beetle food. And now you know why this is so weird. I mean, it's kind of like that Hinger unlock in Monster Rancher DS, making a reference to a game that we never got. But hey, details. Number 7. Monster Rancher 2's Phoenix and Metal Lure eventually return after their death sequence. Demonstrably false. This myth, odd as it sounds, likely stems from the Phoenix and Metal Lure species not sharing a normal death animation like any other monster breed in the game. Instead, they fly away into the distance. And it is mechanically different insofar as it doesn't count as a monster death for things like the altar upgrades and such events. I also think that this maybe stems a little from the anime and its insistence that the Phoenix revives monsters or itself in some capacity. It does not. I remember seeing variants of this myth saying that it takes a year, 10 years, or 100 years. These monsters do not return in any capacity. Letting their lifespan end is every bit as wasteful and final as letting any other monster pass on normally. You get nothing for doing this, so don't. Legend Cup says, this does not happen. It was a rumor started in 1999 by an individual who later, in March 2000, confessed they made it all up, but not before it was copy-pasted all over the place and regarded as fact. Number 6. The accuracy readout lies to you? Again, no, it doesn't. The accuracy readout is the raw percentages as the game is calculating them. This isn't Fire Emblem. What this is the human tendency to not really understand percentages. See, a monster can miss on a 99% or hit on a 1% because in the realm of applied statistics, if you rolled a 100-sided die an infinity number of rolls, you will hit the statistically improbable option eventually. And your personal anecdotes start to pile up after a while. The only time this gets a tiny bit fuzzy is a very niche circumstance. The will battle passive in Monster Rancher 2, which doubles guts cost but raises hit percentage. However, due to a bug, it does not show you the improved accuracy, but it is still happening under the hood. How random. Number 5. Monster Rancher 1's Nead doll can be found on expeditions? Once again, absolutely not. The Nead doll is bought in the shop, and the shop expansion events trigger only when a certain amount of time has passed, and then you visit the shop to queue them. And you need to queue them manually in order for the next timer to start ticking down. You'll need to do this until the Nead doll pops into the shop. Then, here's a complicated unlock for you. You buy it, and then you fuse some monsters to make the Nead. People have persisted in spreading this rumor, but until someone actually proves it, which you can't, by the way, since the game has been data mined and we know for a fact an unmodded game cannot have this happen, it remains just a pointless rumor. And seriously, you buy it from the shop. Why would you even need to go out of your way on expeditions to do it? Number 4. My CD/DVD contains a secret or rare monster. Well, this technically depends, but it is entirely too common that people post online how a particular disc of their collection got them a quote-unquote rare monster that is in no way rare. While one can argue that any disc that unlocks a monster with a question mark secondary gene is a kind of rare monster, Monster Rancher doesn't technically have rare monsters per se. A good example being a breed or family lock tournament in Monster Rancher Advance 2, where busting out a phoenix can cause the whole of Age Island to suddenly have ranches with phoenixes on them. And while certain monsters in certain games can be considered the canon or story rares, like how Robo, the dragon/Hinger, was among the hardest monsters to get in the first game of the series, in Monster Rancher 4 it can also be one of the first ones you get off the disc, purely by chance. I cannot reiterate this enough. Check legendcup.com before you start making big claims. Seriously. Number 3. Monster Rancher 2's opening personality quiz can lock you out of monster breeds? I see this one all the time, and it just isn't true. At the start of Monster Rancher 2, you're given a little personality quiz consisting of 10 questions out of a pool of, I believe, 12 possible questions, all parsed in a standard yes-no format. Among those questions include inquiries about your thoughts on the existence of aliens and ghosts. And for years and years, people have spread this inane rumor that saying no will lock you out of the Meddler or Ghost Monster breed unlocks, and they absolutely do not. Do you want to know what Monster Rancher 2's personality quiz does? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's just to immerse the player in the game's world. In Monster Rancher Battle Cards 1 and 2, a similar quiz is used to dictate what your starting deck is, but even then, the questions can't lock breeds out of the player's game. Also, it is entirely possible for the questions about aliens and ghosts to not even appear in any form in the intro sequence, thus rendering any potential mechanical consideration moot anyway. Number 2. This method may take several attempts. This one's a little muddy, so try to bear with me as I explain this. Some of Monster Rancher's unlock conditions are bad and dumb and badly dumb. And this led to rumors on the web that positively ballooned in scope as a result. Here's a classic example for unlocking the supposedly legendary monster known as Sasquatch somewhere hidden in Monster Rancher 2. Quote, first, obtain the Jill monster. Use Jill in the Papasa Ranchery at least 10 times in a row without resting for a single week. Next, rest your monster for 10 months in a row. Go to the Papasa Ranchery 10 more times in a row. Save the game at this point. Approximately 1 year later, it will die. Hold Start plus Select to reset the game. Then bring your Jill to the village and combine it with a golem using the Big Footstep as seasoning. This should result in Sasquatch. Note, this may take several attempts. Anyone with a rudimentary understanding of these games will know this won't work, because going to any ranchery 10 times in a row without resting would just kill the monster via exhaustion. Never mind a year after what is essentially a 3-year endeavor, and then save scumming inexplicably midway through. And that little note on the end is what supposedly turns impossibility into plausibility, despite the fact that this is patent nonsense and no such monster has ever been documented. And this is hardly unique. Such methods were all over early Monster Rancher fan sites, much to veterans' great annoyance. And before we get straight to number 1, let's talk about some dishonorable mentions. Monsters with ridiculously long lifespans. Technically doable, particularly in Monster Rancher 1, but not usually in the way that these alleged methods claim. The old MonsterRancher.com argument over a 20-year-old golem springs to mind. The inverted disc. This one's a little more obscure as Monster Rancher rumors go, but some people were spreading a rumor that if you set a disc upside down in Monster Rancher 1 or 2 Shrine, you get a special disc monster called the inverted disc. Except for the fact that you won't, since that's not actually how CD players work. Interestingly enough, if you do this in the PS2 series of games, it'll unlock the game's default monsters, Mochi, Mushtan, and Pororo, due to how the Shrine handles its exceptions. So there is kind of, sort of, not really truth to this. Again, kind of. The PvP scene is hyper-competitive and unwelcoming. I can confirm this is absolutely untrue. The fan-held tournaments by the likes of the Monster Rancher Discord server, Mr. Moosebones, and the such are usually extremely welcoming, even to blockheads like myself. It's easy to get into, and usually special rules are considered to ensure fair and fun play. Not full of cheaters and metagamers the way that some other Monster Games PvP scenes are. You guys really should get involved if it's something that you think you'd find interesting. Anyway, all that said, let's get to number 1. The God Slate / Moo Battle. In Monster Rancher 2's Calria Volcano Expedition at the Phoenix statue, if your monster has over 600 intelligence, it's possible to find an item known as the God Slate, which is, in fact, the entire impetus to begin the Calria expedition in the first place. Your guide, Talico, celebrates the discovery of the Lemnos Shrine, whatever that is, and according to the Cutting Room Floor wiki, this once had some connection to a battle against an exceptionally powerful dragon, Moo, and the data for that fight remains in the game. However, this tournament never queues now, presumably replaced by the Legend Cup itself, if I had to guess. The God Slate item, however, is completely functionless, and the Moo battle never happens no matter what you may or may not do. And, due to how expeditions work, it's not impossible to find multiple God Slates and even multiples in a single expedition, somewhat undermining the alleged story connotations this piece of treasure is supposed to represent. But, hey, if it makes Talico happy, there's that. And that was the top 10 Monster Rancher myths. Special thanks again to the Monster Rancher Discord in particular for helping me cobble this list together. What did you guys think? Did you learn anything new from this list? Any rumors that spread on your childhood playgrounds? Leave a comment down below telling me what they were. And if you stayed all the way to the end, you legend, let me know that too. And you can join me here each week for reviews, Let's Plays, Top 10 Snek Tech, and the home of the Tomodachi Bros podcast. All relevant links in the description always. And keep joining me here, and I will see you there.